When we last left off, Absalom had returned to Jerusalem and had gained the forgiveness of his father. But for 4 years he plotted to take the throne from his father and had worked to win over the hearts of the people. Hello, I'm your host Knight Jake, and welcome to Bible Wars. This episode begins in 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 7. After 4 years of conspiring against his father, Absalom was ready to set his plans into motion. He asked the king, "Please let me go and pay my vow which I made to the Lord in Hebron. For while I lived in Gersha in Aram, I made a vow to the Lord that if he would ever bring me back home here to Jerusalem, I would worship him at Hebron." So David bid Absalom to go in peace, and so Absalom headed to Hebron. But he sent secret messages to all the tribes of Israel, saying, "When you hear the sound of trumpets, say, 'Absalom is king at Hebron.'" With Absalom went 200 men from Jerusalem, who were invited guests, and they were innocent, as they knew nothing of Absalom's plan. While Absalom was offering the sacrifice, he sent for Ahithophel, the Gileonite, David's counselor from the city of Gilo. And the conspiracy grew strong, and the people continued to increase. And a messenger came to King David to warn him that the hearts of the men of Israel had gone after Absalom. And so, on that day, David fled Jerusalem, calling his servants to flee with him before Absalom returned, and to escape Jerusalem before it became impossible. The king, his servants, and all his household fled. David left only 10 of his concubines behind to keep house. As they fled, they halted at the last house in the city. All his servants passed by in front of him. And then all the Kerethites, Pelethites, and the 600 Gittites that had followed him from Gath marched out before him. The Kerethites, Pelethites, and Gittites were Philistines, who were loyal to King David ever since he had fled from King Saul's persecutions. David said to Ittai the Gittite, the leader, "Why do you also come with us? Go back and stay with the king." He was referring to Absalom, who was now declaring himself king. "For you are a foreigner and an exile from your own home. You are still new to this city. Shall I make you wander about with us? For I do not know where I will go. Go back, and may the Lord God show steadfast love and faithfulness to you." But Ittai responded, "As long as the Lord God lives, and as long as my lord the king lives, wherever you go, I will go." And so David permitted them to come with him. And as the people left, they wept aloud. And David led the people over the brook of Kedron and into the wilderness. Then Abiathar and Zadok, the priest with the Levites bearing the ark of the covenant of God, came to meet David. David turned to Zadok and told him to carry the ark of God back into the city. For if he, David, had found favor with God, then God would bring him back to Jerusalem. But if God had not found favor with David, then David was prepared to receive whatever fate God intended for him. He told Zadok and Abiathar to return to Jerusalem, and to take their sons, Ahimaaz the son of Zadok, and Jonathan the son of Abiathar, with them. David would wait in the wilderness to hear from them. David went up to the Mount of Olives, weeping as he went, barefoot and with his head covered, and all those who were with him covered their heads and wept with him. news came to David that Ahithophel was amongst the conspirators, and David prayed to God to please turn Ahithophel's counsel into foolishness. And while David approached the summit of the Mount of Olives, where God was worshipped, Hushai the Archite came to meet him with his coat torn and ashes on his head. David urged Hushai not to come with him, but instead to stay in Jerusalem and to work as a double agent for King David. Hushai could offer his counsel to Absalom and thus prevent the counsel of Ahithophel. And so Hushai returned to Jerusalem just as Absalom had arrived. Hushai, Zadok, Abiathar, Ahimaaz, and Jonathan would all stay in Jerusalem to work as double agents for King David and help to overthrow Absalom. As for David, after fleeing Jerusalem, he had two interesting incidents. One with Ziba, the servant of Mephibosheth, the crippled son of Jonathan, the son of the former King Saul. And he had another incident with Shimei, the son of Gera of the household of King Saul, who cursed David for taking Saul's throne. As we are focusing on Absalom's rebellion against King David, we will skip over these two incidents. But I would encourage the viewers to read these accounts, which can be found in 2 Samuel chapter 16. Now David and all the people who had followed him came to the river Jordan. Here they camped and refreshed themselves. Join us next time as we continue our video series with Absalom's invasion of Jerusalem. Thank you for watching this episode of Bible Wars. If you enjoy the Bible Wars YouTube series, or any of the other work done by the Order of Knight George, you can support us by going over to our Patreon page. I'll leave a link to our Patreon page in the description below. Goodbye, and God bless.